Good morning. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure, and I'm very delighted to be here to talk about migration in North America. But I have mixed feelings. For me, it's an honor to talk about global warming, migration, and sustainable development, and focus on the problem of migration in North America. But I must confess, talking about emotions, that this is not a very easy moment for me. After the election of last Tuesday in the United States, I think it's something more difficult to solve the global problems in all subjects, but especially in terms for Mexico. And I feel very sorry for some situations that are leaving our planet. Let me begin with my presentation, Migration in North America. I know it's a global problem, but I want to emphasize mainly the problematic of migration in the terms of the context of this conference in North America. And I'm talking about North America that includes Mexico, of course, in the terms of NAFTA, of the North American Treaty of Free Commerce. We talk about North America integrated by Canada, US, and Mexico. First of all, some facts to put some context for everyone. The GDP of North America in the last year was $18 billion for the US, 1.5 and 1.1 for Canada and Mexico. And I put here just China and Germany to have a general comparison of the levels of magnitude of GDP. I know GDP maybe is not a good index, but it's at least an indicator. The population now is US with 324 million people, Mexico 123, and Canada 35 million people. The GDP per capita also shows this big difference in between the three countries. And if we see the Gini index, we can see the growing of inequality all over the world. The US has, the years are not very up to date, but it shows something. US is the place number 45, and Mexico is place number 48. I mean, the inequality of income family in the United States is growing very fast. There are some economic data that we can go to the main problem of migration. Traditionally, the migration from Mexico to the US was a massive migration, and it was migration of people without proper documents from rural areas and the low educational level, but it's changing very fast. The new tendencies, well, from 1995 to 2005, more than 6.5 million Mexicans arrived to the US. Many of these returned to Mexico, and this is a very important matter. It's a circular migration. Most people want to go and return, and to have this circulatory system in between the homeland, Mexico, and the place of work. In the 80s and the 90s of last century, US strengthened the border control, decreased circularity, and regularization of non-documented immigrants stopped this circular migration. The fall of migration, this is one of the main characteristics of this migration from Mexico to the US. After the economic crisis in 2008, and since 2011, migration from Mexico to the US has dropped below 170,000 Mexicans per year. And there is a demographic change in Mexico, very important demographic change. And now the tendency is return to Mexico. I was very surprised when I began to study the facts for this presentation. The number of Mexicans that returned to Mexico has increased 3 times from 1995, 2000 to the period 2005 to 2010. They lost circularity and they stopped going to the US. There is also an increase of the number of people that has been laid off, and it includes Mexicans who left the country decades ago. New tendencies. The migration to Mexico of US-born with Mexican ancestry has increased very much. Many people has now double citizenship. In the last 10 years, 500,000 persons have arrived to Mexico, and they face certain difficulties for adaptation because the difference of the education system. Migration of visa holders. 6 million Mexicans are 1/2 of non-visa holders in the USA, and the US economy cannot be understood without these workers. There is an increase of migrant Mexicans with visas or citizenship, and population born in Mexico or in the USA with Mexican ancestors is equivalent to 36 million people. Migration of visa holders. More than 275,000 people hold visa for temporary jobs. In 2016, Mexico is receiving $28 billion via money transfers from Mexicans that work in the United States of America. It seems that it could change very soon. Let me talk a little bit about the Mexican situation. Here in the circle is the peninsula de Yucatan, which is an area of ancient culture with very rich oil and gas reserves, but very vulnerable to global warming. The level of the territory in relation with the level of the sea is just a few meters, and they have a very strong danger to disappear in a few years. In the origin, geologically, it was an area which was under the sea, and in this area developed the Mayan culture. This, in the red circle, is the poorest area of Mexico. It is the states of Guerrero, Oaxaca, and Chiapas. Chiapas is very rich. It's a rainforest. It's a biodiversity, a very rich biodiversity, and with a lot of minerals. But they concentrate the most extreme poverty in the country. And we receive, by the southern border of Mexico, which is with Belize, Guatemala, and we receive from Honduras, El Salvador, and Guatemala thousands of people each year through the southern border to go to the United States to work. And we receive a lot of people from all Central and South American countries, and many people from Asia, and many people from Africa to arrive there, to cross the country, to go to the United States. Mexico north border. We have a border of 3,200 kilometers, and in this circle, we have stress water in half of the country, but especially in these areas. This is Sonora in the border with Arizona and Chihuahua in the border with Texas. And we have very strong water problems in this area. I was on Monday in Tijuana, which is in the north part, in the border with San Diego, California. And there is 5,000 people from Haiti, which try to cross, because humanitarian reasons, to California. They went from Haiti to work to Brazil in the construction of the Olympic Games buildings. And now they travel from Brazil by land all South and Central America, with a lot of problems in the border of Costa Rica and Nicaragua, and arrive to Tijuana, and they are trying to be in the US. There are two different situations. Mexicans are no longer going to the US, but we receive a lot of people from poverty, because of poverty and because of climate change and because of unfair distribution of income from all over the world to cross the border to the US. Mr. Trump plans to build a wall on the border. The wall already exists. In all urban areas, there are big walls. I mean, he tries to build another wall just to keep this 3,200 kilometers with a new wall. This is North America, at least as I am considering, with these three countries. And we have a very strong relations, Mexico, US, in terms of trade, investment, energy, cultural, academic ties, technology, agriculture, science, religion, very strong ties. I don't know what's going to happen now. Circular migration is ideal for Mexicans. A lot of people have now dual citizenship. There is one phenomenon. It's about 20 million people who live both sides of the border in the area some people call Amerimex or Mex America. People, both sides of the border, they live in one place and work in the other. All over the border, in California to Texas. And all commerce in the US side, the consumer are the Mexicans. And a lot of people live in one country, go to travel or to work to the other every day. Well, let me finish just with a final statements. I think we are facing a big problem. I think this migration problem is a global problem. I think we face the global warming and that increases and improves this migration. And I think the dialogue was very important to solve these kind of problems. I heard that Mr. Trump connected with some people in the US. I agree, he connected very well, but he connected with some people since the ignorance, racism, hate, xenophobia, and misogyny. I think we need to build bridge, and I think this is now another challenge for the Club of Rome. Thank you very much.